In my last video, I covered just a fraction of the strange and unsettling legends that have haunted LittleBigPlanet's community. The myths, the whispers, creepy levels, and strange happenings no one can quite explain. But they don't stop there. There are stories out there, old and new, that still linger in the shadows. Stories that have been passed down, sometimes forgotten, but are always waiting to be rediscovered. You might even find yourself looking at LittleBigPlanet a bit differently as we continue our descent into the LBP rabbit hole. Welcome back to more LittleBigPlanet myths and urban legends. Zalgo. This was an LBP horror level that I didn't know much about until somewhat recently, but because the level badge icon looked similar to Sackboy.exe, I just assumed it was part of the same series. But that doesn't seem to be the case. Zalgo was a level made in March 2014 by the creator Alec Lynch. Outside of the level icon, using a Sackboy.exe looking costume, it's completely unrelated to that creepypasta. When starting the level, it spawns you in a blank pod surrounded by a pitch black void. After pressing square to enter the pod controller, a dark blue screen flashes for a few seconds. Afterwards, the pod becomes much darker. A demonic red face appears in the middle, and after walking closer to it,
He who waits behind the wall. He who waits to end it all. All that you know, all that you are, he will tear it apart and leave you afar. He comes. He awaits us night. He awaits us.
Afterwards, a graphic scene of all LBP2 curators hanging from the pod can be seen, along with the sound of heavy breathing, screen flashes of a demonic creature, and the word Zalgo written in red fading in and out. Your sack person starts ascending to the top of the pod, as if you too would meet a similar fate to the story characters above you. If you try to replay the level after viewing the ending, you'll notice that the level is different on your second playthrough. The level is now black and white with bars covering most of the screen. There's a loud buzzing and text at the bottom that says the doorway can't be closed. Zalgo will pay you a visit. The level is now stuck. It can no longer be progressed or reset. Anytime you try to replay Zalgo, it will stay the same. I bet if I played this as a kid, that would freak me out beyond belief, but yeah, it's just using the memorizer. It's not that crazy. All you would have to do is reset your memorizer data, and you would be able to play Zalgo again, but I bet most people didn't know about that at the time, especially since the memorizer was added after, the DC Comics pack? And that was way later in the life of LBP2. The story behind the Zalgo level, according to the description, goes as follows. Some weeks ago, I was playing a pod giveaway level. One of the pods was named Zalgo's Doorway. The interesting thing is that this pod was very basic, with no decorations whatsoever. Still, I got the pod's bubble and used it in create mode. A lot of weird things began to happen as soon as I unpaused the game, which you can experience in this level firsthand. After this, when I tried to replay it, the level crashed. I've had a strong fever since then. From what I understand, the concept of Zalgo has been used in many different creepypastas throughout the years, so it's not just unique to LBP. The term itself most commonly being associated with those text edits that look corrupted or glitchy, which if you've been on the internet long enough, you'd probably seen quite a bit. But Zalgo Invocation was a famous copypasta from 2009 and 2010. I'm pretty sure that copypasta was used as a basis for many of the other Zalgo stories afterwards, such as this one. Eye Camera Spies. If you remember, all of the LittleBigPlanet games on PS3 allowed you to take pictures using the PSI camera. You would then be able to use those pictures as in-game stickers for extra customization, whether it's for costumes, levels, pods, and whatever else. In retrospect, this might not have been the best idea to implement. I've heard horror stories of this PSI camera feature being used for very explicit and disgusting purposes on LBP, but there's something truly disturbing about a comment I received on my previous video. a comment that recounts a memory that they had as a kid playing LittleBigPlanet. This is what they had to say. When I was younger, me and my brother played LBP in the living room, and we had our PS3 camera set up to take custom funny pictures for levels we made. One day, someone legitimately hacked into our camera and started taking pictures of us on the couch without us even realizing. The pictures we took on purpose we knew were ours because we deliberately made dumb faces for them. But some of these pics were just us sitting unknowingly on the couch. Even scarier than that was some of our custom level pictures were replaced with pictures of other kids from other houses on their couches, like kids we didn't even recognize. Sometimes the titles of levels were changed to random word assortments and phrases too. We purged our levels and threw away the camera. I tell people about this sometimes and they just think I'm lying because it doesn't seem possible, but apparently there were exploits with the PlayStation Network around 2010 and 2011. But wow. Having your privacy breached is one thing, but when it involves something like taking pictures without your consent in what should be a safe game for children is really weird and messed up. I will say though, this shouldn't be possible. I have talked to people who know this game inside and out. They know how each individual feature of the game functions, and all signs point to the story being impossible. At the same time, this isn't the first time I heard of this happening, so who knows? Maybe it was possible at one point, and it was addressed in a security update. I'm not really sure. But if it was an actual problem, we would have definitely heard more about it back in the day. Whether it was on YouTube, forums, or even the news. Sony might have even gotten sued if there were more cases like this. I know other games like SingStar and even the Playroom on PS4 had some security concerns, as those games utilized the camera as a main mechanic. Same goes for Xbox Connect. There were a lot of weird things going on there too. But all I'm going to say about the LBP story is to believe what you want to believe. Regardless, it's a pretty disturbing story whether it's real or not. I don't even know if I can say this level's name on YouTube without getting demonetized, but this was a pretty old LittleBigPlanet 2 level published by Aster 6000. Much like Sackboy.exe and Zalgo, this was also one of those levels mimicking that classic 2012 video game creepypasta horror. It's centered around Clive Handfort, one of the main curators in LBP2 story mode, member of the Alliance and founder of the Factory of a Better Tomorrow. If you played the game, you know that his character is typically melodramatic and pessimistic about pretty much everything around him. He's a pretty sad guy. Taking those character traits into mind, Aster 6000 made things a bit darker, suggesting that Clive, a character that is very rarely happy, might have fallen into a deep depression and taken his own life. Where have I heard that before? Anyways, when starting the level, you spawn in a seemingly abandoned version of the first Cosmos story level. The ship itself is run down with broken windows and cobwebs everywhere. The lighting is much darker, levers don't function properly, and a faint Clive voice can be heard in the distance. As you progress, you'll eventually stumble across a certain room where the elevator is supposed to be. After pulling the lever on the right, this level was honestly one of my favorite horror levels as a kid. It's not that impressive or really even scary, but for some reason, I always thought the ending of the level was crazy. The audio cutting in and out and the constant flickering blew my mind when I was 12 years old. And yeah, I'm sure this is fairly easy stuff to replicate in create mode. I was just never good at LBP logic, especially as a kid. Before we move on from this though, I do want to mention that this level actually had an Easter egg. This Easter egg, which was essentially an alternate ending, can be found by grabbing onto the vent on the far left and walking through it. You'll see a sackbot of Clive standing there in silence. By walking up to him, you'll realize that, surprise, the creepy looking Clive that just jump scared you at the end was simply just a clone of Clive's twin brother. His brother who recently tried to laser his own eyes. So no, nothing bad actually happened to the real Clive. He's fine, don't worry about it. The death of Latin player 10. LittleBigPlanet 10, no doubt, was one of the most infamous members of the LBP community. He sort of kickstarted the whole copied levels epidemic back in LBP 1 and LBP 2. Most of the classic levels that you might have played as a kid, such as Angry Birds Bomb Survival, or Mortal Kombat even, were made popular because of people like LittleBigPlanet. But LittleBigPlanet's way of gaining popularity was pretty frowned upon within the LBP community, because not only would he steal other people's creations and claim them as his own, he would also publish them on numerous alt accounts, delete them and publish them again. These levels would make it to the top of the cool pages without fail. And once LittleBigPlanet decided each level got enough plays, he would delete the levels, republish them, and repeat the cycle. People also didn't like the fact that his copy and pasted slop overshadowed some actual high quality levels, and it was really hard to find something new to play. There's a lot that can be discussed when it comes to LittleBigPlanet, including all of the theories surrounding their true identity. Was it really just one person, or was it a team of people organizing and operating all of these accounts? The most mysterious theory of them all, though, is related to their disappearance from the LBP community. LittleBigPlanet's 10 Reign of Terror would eventually end sometime in the early to mid 2010s, and as time went on, loads of copycats would follow in his footsteps, none of which would quite reach the same level of popularity, but still were kind of causing the same issues. And while most people were happy that it was less of an issue, people still wondered as to what happened to the original LittleBigPlanet 10. Rumors were starting to spread across the LBP community after his sudden disappearance, including a bunch of levels talking about it. One level that I remember the most, though, was called In Memory of LittleBigPlanet 10 by Black Sky 10. It was a simple level that explained the whole story using a Sackbot and text boxes, claiming that LittleBigPlanet said he wasn't publishing levels as often due to his multiple console bans. He figured that a third and final console ban would be inevitable, so LittleBigPlanet just gave up on the cool page clout chasing scheme that he built for himself. But here's the twist. LittleBigPlanet 10 actually lied about those console bans, and the true reason he stopped publishing was because he supposedly had brain cancer and only had 2 months to live. He didn't want to tell anyone, but close friends managed to find out about it, which then spread throughout the wider LBP community. Now again, this is a story that if you want to believe it, go ahead, I'm not going to stop you. But to me, I didn't believe this story back then, and I don't believe it now. Who knows what really happened to LittleBigPlanet though? In all honesty, he probably just got sick of the constant hate and quit the game. I mean, even I made a level dissing him back in the day. I was an OG hater. As a kid, I saw LittleBigPlanet as this evil, terrible person, the true antagonist of LBP. But looking back, all he really did was abuse an in-game feature to gain popularity. And sure, it got a bit out of hand, but what he did was not nearly as bad as some of the other things that happened in this community, trust me. LittleBigDyl's Ghost video. Not to be confused with the LBP Ghost from my previous Myths and Urban Legends video, LittleBigDyl, or LittleBigDyl's Ghost, is a much older urban legend, and a lot more well known to my surprise. LittleBigDyl was a YouTube channel that, if you couldn't guess, made videos on LittleBigPlanet, more specifically on the first and second games. In 2011, this person would make a video called Ghost in LBP ? This creepypasta-esque LBP video would garner over 100,000 views, which explains why so many people knew about it, but at some point in 2018, LittleBigDyl deleted their channel, making all of their videos, including the LBP Ghost video, lost media. I never actually got the chance to watch it myself, but since I was seeing a lot of people comment about it, I ended up doing some research and talking to a few people that have seen the video to get a rough idea of what was actually in it. To start things off, of course, the video had a Michael Myers theme song from Halloween playing in the background. It was also supposedly edited in Windows Movie Maker, and looked similar to those fake Bigfoot sightings in GTA San Andreas videos. In it though, LittleBigDyl claimed that another sack person, or ghost perhaps, kept appearing in their game when playing alone. When he took a photo in the pod by himself and checked the photos menu in the Poppet, another Sack person appeared in the photo. This other Sackboy looked like a dog of some kind. Not necessarily a scary looking dog, but a dog nonetheless. This dog was the so-called ghost that LittleBigDyl claimed he saw in-game, and it even followed him into random community levels, one of those levels being Heaven and Hell by Widor 2, more specifically the intro part of that level with the fire truck. Anyways, to show that a second controller wasn't connected, LittleBigDyl opened up the Manage Players menu, where you can clearly see where the second player is supposed to be, but it's been poorly edited out in Microsoft Paint. This ghost video has been lost for quite some time now, and unless somebody saved it during the 7 years or so it was up on YouTube, it might actually be gone forever. I don't want that to be the case though. I know a lot of people in the LBP community grew up with this video and they want to see it again. So if you or anyone you know watched or potentially saved this ghost video back in the day, go back and check whatever you can. Look through old computers and hard drives. You might still have it, who knows. Try to reach out to anyone that might have a potential lead. There's a small chance it's still out there. LBP Sleep Paralysis Demon. I wanted to save this one for last, mainly because it's something that actually happened to me, and I've never really told people about it, at least not in full detail. It has to do with a dream I had, and while I can promise everything I'm about to talk about did happen, I just don't know how much of it was real and how much of it was dream related, so keep that in mind. Going back 2 years ago, I took a short nap during the day, and I had a dream about LittleBigPlanet, LBP 3 specifically. In this dream, I don't remember if I was simply playing LBP or getting ready to record a pod surfing video or something, but regardless, I was sitting in a blank pod with nobody else but me in it. Suddenly, I get a join request from someone I didn't know, and I didn't get the option to accept it or decline it. They joined my pod by force, and when they joined, they showed up as a default Sackboy. After a few seconds, the screen flashed white, then went back to normal. The Sackboy was still there in my pod, but had a sad expression on his face. He also had the stitched X's costume piece for his eyes, and he looked a bit gray or monotone. It didn't take long for me to start hearing a loud buzzing sound, immediately after which I opened my eyes, but still heard the sound loud and clear outside of my dream. I was seemingly awake, but didn't know where the sound was coming from. I also quickly realized that I couldn't move, couldn't speak, and could barely breathe. Before I knew it, the buzzing sound got much louder, and it started to feel like I was levitating above my bed. I genuinely thought I was dying in that moment, and I didn't know what to do. I eventually snapped myself out of it, woke up completely, and took a bit to think about what the hell just happened to me. And after asking around and looking into it online, I came to the conclusion that I was experiencing sleep paralysis, which isn't too uncommon. The thing I can't really explain though was the levitating part. That part kind of freaks me out still, because that levitation thing lines up almost perfectly with something called astral projection, which is described as an intentional out-of-body experience where your consciousness can function separately from the physical body and travel throughout the astral plane. And yeah, that sounds crazy, right? I'm not a very spiritual person myself, so I don't really know if I believe in something like astral projection. But if that's the case, then what did happen? Was I still dreaming? Was it a side effect of a sleep paralysis? Was I actually dying? I don't know. But I still think about it to this day. And most confusing though, why after a strange LittleBigPlanet related dream like that? Was it stress related? Maybe, but whatever the case, I don't really want to experience something like that again. I kind of hope it was a one-off thing, and my LBP sleep paralysis demon doesn't come back. So, that was part 2 of LittleBigPlanet myths and urban legends. I know it's not Halloween season anymore, but the first video did pretty damn well to my surprise. So I decided, hey, why not make another one, right? I already had a couple things written down from a sequel video, and a lot of your comments helped me as well. Speaking of which, feel free to share some more of your LBP stories in the comments. I might just include them in a potential part 3 video, we'll see. Thanks for watching though, I'll see you guys next time, goodbye.